did an article on all the superheroes I get ready for movies. And they're like, what's the magic exercise? I'm like, there is no magic exercise. But the one exercise that they all did in common was,
you can't be your best self if you're not taking care of your body. Like, it's just a fact. You know? When I was younger, when we were younger, people who at 45 seemed like they were old and retired. And
probably the most underrated of all exercises. I mean, I think a farmer walk, it's funny. Oh God, what publication was it? Did an article on all the superheroes I get ready for movies. And they're like, what's the magic exercise? I'm like, there is no magic exercise. But the one exercise that they all did in common was some form of a carry variation. So whether it's an overhead carry, a rack carry, a farmer walk, a one-arm carry, a bottoms-up carry, every one of my clients I have do a carry. And I just think that they're magic. It's a carry for me is a moving plank.
So I'm gonna go for a little lap. This is what I'm gonna do. Posture's good. I'm gonna walk. So now what I'm doing is I'm creating tension in my body.
It's a moving plank where you stabilize and you create stability in the entire body. It's safe. We'll get people post-rehab when they're transitioning from their physical therapist. We can get them loading heavy. We've developed incredible shoulder pressing strength by doing carries with someone who's, has an injured shoulder. So for me, you can go heavy. They're very safe. There's still things to think about. I don't want someone going and trying to pick up 800 pounds.
Can you detail, let's give maybe two versions of carries, detail what it looks like for people listening.
Yeah, so I think a carry would be like a very basic farmer walk. So it'd be like if you were picking up 2 suitcases and you were walking through the airport with them, envisioning doing that with 2 dumbbells or 2 kettlebells. For really strong people, they might stand in the middle of a trap bar and they might walk. And the purpose is to stabilize and keep your shoulders level and good posture and making sure that you're not arching your back. So it really is a full body exercise, but it's a moving plank. So you train everything from the ground up. And then there's different variations of them. You can do them one-handed. I could do an overhead where I have a kettlebell in my hand and I have to promote keeping my ribs down. Now we're working on shoulder stability. Now we have to really lock in that lat. And as you're walking and you're carrying a 48 kilo bell over your hand, you tell me how your body's feeling. You're going to be like, oh, wait, I got to correct myself and get myself into this position that's going to promote strength on one half of the body to stabilize. So I hope that wasn't too confusing for the followers, but for the viewers, but they are magic exercises. I think at the very minimal approach, start with a 2-handed farmer walk. Pick up 2 weights, walk across your gym for 25 to 50 yards or 25 to 50 steps, anywhere in that range I like. And then in time, as you develop some consistency, go heavier. Go heavier and go heavier. And then your heart rate's going to be working and then you're going to be sweating and then you're going to focus on creating tension in the body, which is really important for strength building and body composition.
Well, I can't have you here without giving the people what they want, man, which is we got to talk. What are the secrets to the six pack, Dom? We got to talk about it. We got to talk about, this is the thing again, when people are seeing the magazine cover, they're seeing Ryan Reynolds, they're seeing all these folks, and it's something that we aspire towards as a physical culture. Like we admire the physical culture of the Greeks and the Romans and even the ancient Egyptians. What do we do to access that physique? That's the illustrious six pack. What are the secrets
movement. Here? It's only one. No, I'm like, hey.
I know it's not going to be what people think.
No, you want to know what? So first off, like when I'm for my for the six pack, I probably train my abs directly maybe twice a week at the most on a good week. So maybe it's once a week. I have a couple exercises I love to do. I love some type of a hanging leg raise. I love like a Copenhagen plank.
Can you explain that?
Yeah, Copenhagen plank would be where you're getting into a side plank position with your foot, with your leg elevated up onto a bench or a block, and you're almost taking one leg and like putting it into a sprinter pose, and you have to heavily engage everything from your serratus to your obliques to your core. So it's a way of training all of this from an anti-rotational standpoint. So I love, and I'll actually throw in a weighted kneeling crunch. I don't ever do crunches, but a kneeling crunch where my elbows will go to my knees. I actually believe in adding some type of resistance with our abs, because if we're just sitting here, I'm not going to grab a 5-pound weight and do this 500 times. Why am I going to sit there and I like to develop my abs to be a little blockier and a little thicker. I try and make my abs more muscular. And then through nutrition, I'm able to keep my my skin thinner and my fat levels lower. So when I went in for a DEXA, my body fat percentage around my midsection was at 5%. So my midsection is lean. If my body fat was higher, it's because my legs might hold a little bit more from a lot of the powerlifting that I ended up doing and that type of training. So I know a lot of my abdominal work doesn't really come from those abdominal exercises that I named. Ab wheels. I love ab wheels. It came from me deadlifting and doing some form of a squat and being able to run. I mean, in college, I was a little bit of a runner. I ran a 452 mile in college. I could move at about 219 pounds. I was a big guy. I'm about 212 pounds now. So I was heavier.
That's scary.
I can run scary
good.
3 to 5 miles. I was fast for a big guy. Yeah. But I don't run as much anymore. But going in and hitting my cardio, not overstaying my welcome, and developing strength and hypertrophy. So going in and building muscle is how I get my body to be really tight in conjunction with a proper eating plan. So when I need to get my abs a little bit sharper, yeah, the macros dial in and everything becomes a little monotonous from day to day. But my training all year long, I train hard. If I'm training at 20 reps, people are like, well, do you train light or heavy? I'm like, I always train heavy. Well, it's bad to train at low reps. I didn't say that. I said I always train heavy. If it's 20 reps, it's heavy. If it's 10 reps, it's heavy. If it's 1 rep, it's heavy. It's always hard and heavy. And I have to adjust intensity according to how I feel, maybe how my readiness is. Or if I'm coming off of a specific type of training that's a lot of power and a lot of strength and I'm starting to overstay my welcome, I adjust my training to maybe work more on work capacity or muscular endurance. And then I'll maybe lose a little bit of strength, but focus on those other qualities. So I think it's the fact that I'm always going into a program. And when I go into that program, I commit to it. And I try and be the best I can with it, but my nutrition's always tight and the ab training's there, and just try and be strong. I mean, it's the combination of all those things. It's just all those things working together in time, I believe is what can give you a physique that's, as I call, cover ready.
The thing is, the formula is so simple.
It's not sexy.
You didn't really, most of what you shared was not about ab exercises.
No.
So I want to reiterate this because the truth is our basic human template, like my youngest son is 9 and he's got a 6-pack, like you could see the definition, the muscles are there. We all have these abdominal muscles already there, but it can get covered up with some stuff.
Yeah.
And you can specifically target, like you said, to make those muscles thicker. But in the reality, what we want to do is to reduce the body fat and through all the other things that you said and just have overall functionality and all the things that tie into the abs. It's not just the rectus abdominis, it's the whole area around that.
Yeah. From a functionality standpoint, for me, that's most important. If I can get up and I can get on a trap bar and pick up 700 pounds and walk, 20 yards with it, my abs have to be strong.
Right.
My core has to be strong. If I'm, doing a Zercher squat and I've got at least 315 or 365 in my arms and I can hold that with a perfect spine, like my core is strong. And my abs are getting a lot of work doing that. So I still like individually touching, I always call it touching, like the abs and maybe hitting it once or twice a week because I like to feel like they're tight and feel like they're good. And I do believe it helps a little bit. But we got to get that other stuff right first. I mean, some of the powerlifters that I know, you go up to their abs and you hit them in the ab. You could shoot them in the stomach with a 22. I doubt it would even go through their abdominal wall. Like they're so strong, but you can't see an ab because they got a layer of fat over them. So if we remove that layer of fat, they probably look a little bit different, but that's by their choice. I mean, that's what they want to do. And their job is powerlifting and they have to be able to total, 2,600 pounds.
Maintaining and or building lean body mass is one of the best things for metabolism, right? I sit here, if I have more lean body mass, I'm burning more calories. But it's also, it's connected to so many health markers. And not to mention, people that have more muscle mass are able to, they have a better body fat set point, meaning, so one of the issues with weight loss is there's something called a body fat set point, which has now been, used to be a theory and now has been more confirmed. So it just means that if you've stayed at a certain weight for a long period of time, your body's gonna have a tougher time moving from that weight, right? Because that's what's safe, that's homeostasis. So if you go up or down too much, but especially down, it's gonna go like, whoa, survival, like this is not good. And then the hormone leptin is almost like a thermostat, right? It's a thermostat in the sense of if you drop, it's gonna basically reduce the temperature so that we kind of come back, right? If we go up, So it's going to regulate it because it wants you to stay in that homeostasis. Exercise and strength training has been proven to be able to adjust that, or should I say like help with that. So if you drop weight and you strength train, your body will have an easier time staying at that lower weight, right? And there's been a lot of studies done around that. Enough to confirm, like, first of all, like this is something you have to do, right? Now, what does strength training look like? I mean, it's obviously depends how much do you want to improve your performance and put on muscle, but any person that wants to be healthier, lose weight, be fitter long-term should be doing some form of exercise and strength training. Like that's been proven across the board. And a lot of times people say, okay, Luca, what if you had a template, you know? And obviously everything's different for everybody, but if you had a template, I had a great conversation with Dr. Andy Galpin about this, but what would it be? I said, well, one, you should strength train 2 to 3 days a week, right? So somewhere in that range. You should do something fast 1 day a week, regardless of your age, what your goals are. And I'm going to touch on that one because I think that's one that's missed out a lot on, right? And it's, first of all, the first thing that you lose as you age is not strength, it's power. It's not cardio, it's power. And people that, you know, first of all, things like agility, quickness, reactivity, when folks fall and break their hips, which is a huge number, like 1 out of 3 people over the age of 50, that's power, right? That's speed, that's reactivity. And it's almost like there's this fear of it, right? Oh, as I get older, I shouldn't be doing that. But it's actually like, no, you should. Now, it might look different for, you know, if I'm doing box jumps and full-blown sprints and we have somebody that's 55, maybe even 60, they may not be doing the same thing. But you know what? They could be throwing a medicine ball explosively for them. They could be pushing a sled fast. They could be, we'll do, you know, card throws, like I'll throw cards and obviously they get all wonky. They're going to try to catch them. Tennis ball drills, speed ladder drills. For them, that's going to be fast. And they can still improve that speed and they can still, I would say, work on that so that they don't lose it. Like you don't use it, you lose it, right? Yeah. And I mean, a great example is like my dad has Parkinson's, the onset of it. He goes and he boxes, right? So he does these speed ladder drills. And, you know, the doctor was like, I don't know what you're doing, but whatever you're doing, man, it's like it's keeping it at bay. And so that, like, speed is such an important factor of it. So once a week at least, you should be doing something fast. Once a week, you should get your heart rate up high for whatever that is for you. So think hard conditioning, right? I like to do that heart rate monitoring. So do something, you know, fast, explosive for whatever that person is, get the heart rate high, let it drop back down. I know this is basics, but this is definitely a template of it. Once a week, do something for a longer duration of time on cardio, but not as high of intensity. And I would say probably more like once to twice a week on that front. And always making sure that you work on quality movement. You know, and even in the last show, we kind of dove pretty deep into that as far as movement hygiene, mobility. I mean, that's extremely important because my philosophy is always move well, move more, move strong, move fast, right? But it starts with move well. If you don't move well and then you add more volume, you add more load on top of that, you add speed, you're just going to speed up dysfunction, right? So if I have a horrible posture and I don't first, you know, improve my mobility and move well, guess what's going to happen? Right? I'm going to load that and something's going to go off. My neck, my shoulder, my low back, something's going to break down. So when it comes to exercise, I really, really like that template because if you strength train 2 to 3 days a week, you do a little longer distance, or should I say longer duration cardio, which can be a lot of different things, about, you know, 2 days a week. You do speed training once a week, and you do 1, maybe 2 sessions with higher intensity heart rates. That's a pretty damn good model right there, right? And the reason I say this many times is because somebody that's just starting off, hey, 2 strength sessions, you know, and 1 speed session and 1 cardio session, great. And you can do it in the same day. For example, I could do speed training and then afterwards do high intensity intervals, right? Those couple together pretty well. I can do a strength session and then afterwards do some longer duration, right? There's ways to piece it together. It doesn't have to be somebody's going like, hold on, so I got to train 8 days a week. Like, no. Like, But I'm saying that type of stimulus, right? That type of stimulus. We live in an age where you need to, we only have so much time. So if you have an hour, I could do, a quality warm up for 10 minutes, do strength training for 30, 40 minutes, and finish off with some type of, high intensity conditioning for 15, and that's an hour and 5 minutes. But I've now knocked out a couple of those variables inside of that training session. So I think it's important to, just look at, okay, what are the things that help us be more resilient, strong, and longevity, right? We know cardio used to be a thing that we did to lose weight, and we know that's not the most effective thing whatsoever, but it is extremely important when it comes to health, extremely. And I'm glad that like one of my really close friends, Joel Jameson, has done so much research on it. He put HRV on app, was one of the first guys that did that. Like, the correlation of like quality cardio and heart rate variability is, I think that you end up, there's certain markers that show you live 10% longer if you have, quality cardio and you have good HRV. That's like 8 years, 7 to 8 years. Could I sell you on that? Hey, listen, like, would you like to live 10% longer? Yeah. Okay, great. Make sure you do your cardio. And there's, like I said, there's different ways to do it. I think that's a pretty good template to do that.
Stop telling people just to walk more, period. Instead, I'll try to approach like you can actually get more done in many cases if you choose to walk, because walking, well, let's go with first, like why it's a nutrient dense movement. It really uses a lot of your body. It loads the bones, right? So like if you were to compare it, cycling, for example, walking, you are weight bearing on your body. Where cycling, you're not. Your weight is really put upon your seat, which is put upon the frame, right? So it's you carrying your weight around. A good thing to do. So we talk about body weight exercise. Walking is a body weight exercise. It's where your limbs get to feel how much you move. They're also moving through a really big range of motion. Your arms are swinging front to back, much different than the computer position or even your arms affixed to a bicycle position, right? Where your arms are still sort of in the computer position. So you get this shoulder movement. Your legs are getting behind you perhaps for the first time that day. Like even if you're cycling, your thigh bone never goes behind you. Yes, it's moving a lot, but it's moving through a very narrow range of its potential. So walking, again, it moves a lot of body parts. And when you carry something too at the same time, there's a lot of core work, coordination, glute work that goes into walking. I mean, as simple as it is and as slow and boring as it can seem, your body doesn't feel that way. Your mind feels that way, but your body doesn't necessarily feel that way. Especially if you can figure out, like if walking hurts, and there's different ranges of ability, but if walking is bugging you in your knees or your hips or your feet, you want to sort that out, because for this other reason why I recommend walking really facilitates lots of experiences and transportation. Like getting from point A to point B is a thing that humans do, like moving around. And it's kind of hard to explain it now, because we've become so car centric recently that unless you are a walker, which I am a walker, meaning I choose that as transportation, you don't really realize that we've given up most of the walkways for carways. I mean, I've been walking and hanging off the side of a freeway before because there's no other way to get to a place anymore without a car, without a motorized transportation. And so it's just one of the reasons that people don't move, it has a lot to do with their economical reasons, because time and economical reasons really go hand in hand. This exercise, move more, requires oftentimes that you have free time. And so what they really understand is a lot of people don't have free time. And so if you use an economical model, it's called sloth. Have you ever heard of it? So it says that that humans are really, and it's an American model, I believe. You're spending your time sleeping, leisure, occupation, travel, and home. That's the times that you're in, and they all relate sort of to the economy of your time, but also that's relating to the overall economy of how much you're having to work, to survive really, financially. So transportation is one of those places that it's very easy to add movement to getting to some other place where you need to do a task. So walking and even cycling, if you can't walk, or other forms of rolling, allow you to add more movement into the transportation time, which, because everything is sort of parsed and separated now, we spend a lot of time getting to a place to do a thing, right? Like, how much of your time is not doing a thing, but getting to a place to do the thing? Like, economically, it's a huge wasted period of time. We try to fill it with podcasts, to better yourself for learning. Thanks everyone for listening. And then, you try to fill it, maybe some reading, maybe some talking, maybe some relaxing, but movement can go in there too. So this idea that active transport is a way that can really be a viable solution, and walking to be such a whole body one, requires no gear, has a pretty low carbon footprint. It's got actual footprints, that's why I'm in favor of it. I'm not going to tell you to do it, but I am going to tell you all of the benefits that come from doing it and where it can fit in.
There's so many different attributes of strength. I mean, you'll even hear somebody say, hey, stay strong. When somebody's fighting an illness, or somebody has something happen in their life, they go through a divorce, someone will say strong, stay strong. There's so many different variations of strength and willpower, and even just in terms of like gymnastics. Like, is a smaller gymnastics guy or girl who's holding themselves up on those rings, are they not as strong as I am? Like, I can't hold myself up like that. So they're demonstrating just a different level of strength. And then someone like a Usain Bolt, you might not think like that he's powerful, but that's one of the most powerful people to ever walk the face of the earth. Nobody has ever demonstrated to be able to produce more force than somebody like that. He's on the ground, less time than anybody in history, because he's able to produce so much force. He's able to basically projectile himself through the air faster than anybody can fathom, right? And so there's many different forms of strength, and I think for that reason, you do want to be able to demonstrate your strength in some different ways. I mean, it would be nice to be able to bench, squat, and deadlift something, because they have great value in terms of kind of like getting your money's worth type of thing. Those are kind of the exercises you're going to get the most bang for your buck out of. Not a lot has changed in fitness when it comes to that kind of thing. So you got a bench, you have a squat, you have a deadlift, you have an overhead press, you have a bent over row, you got pull-ups, you got push-ups, and then you kind of start running out of exercises that are super effective. Then from there, it's not that a clean and jerk is not effective. All those are super effective, but those are variations of squats. A clean and jerk and a snatch and the Olympic lifts and stuff, those are all still, it just becomes a giant variation. And then there's machines, and they all have their place. But to answer the question very directly, yes, you should be strong in a bunch of different ways, and I think you should be able to demonstrate some strength through your upper body. You should be able to demonstrate some strength through your lower body. You might hear somebody say, like, you should be able to like hip hinge, or you should be able to like, do like a knee bend. A knee bend's a squat, hip hinge is a deadlift. Upper body strength demonstration could be pull-ups, it could be a bench press, it could be push-ups. But yeah, it is great to be able to demonstrate some sort of strength in all these different avenues. If you try to pursue towards one thing too heavily, whether it's to be leaner or whether it's to be stronger, then other things will fall apart. So if you're trying to be really, really strong, you're not going to be great at tying your shoes. If you're trying to get really, really super lean, you most likely will not be very strong. And then you try to find a happy medium between the two, and that's, I think, what most people are struggling with is, and most of the people in my world are struggling with, they like being strong, but they don't want to be fat, or they don't even want to be like puffy. They want to be leaned out. They want to have the abs, and so they're like, man, how do I have abs and lift heavy? If it's kind of unnatural for you to have abs, if you have to really, really, really work at it, then for you to have abs, you are going to lose strength because you'll have to lose a significant amount of weight. And so it's hard to find that balance. So again, to kind of bench squat and deadlift are going to be great because they're going to work so many different muscles at one time. Barbell exercises are amazing because they're barbell exercises, and barbell exercises are detrimental because they're barbell exercises. So bench squat and deadlift are amazing because you can use so much weight in them. And normally when I do like a strength training seminar, I'll say, who in the room has lifted 400 pounds? A couple hands will go up. I'll say 500 pounds, and eventually usually it stops at like 600 pounds. And I'll say, okay, what lift was that done in? And they'll say a deadlift. And I'll say, okay, does everybody kind of understand that like this is going to be one of the better ways that we can overload the body? Everybody kind of agrees so we can kind of move forward, because overloading the body is going to give us a great stimulus. It's going to help with bone density, going to help with increased muscle mass, going to give us the most bang for our buck. It's going to be really hard to get big and strong if all we're doing is like overhead squats. Overhead squats it's a great exercise. How much weight can you use in an overhead squat? Probably not that much. So if we're trying to actually add muscle mass, which by the way should be everyone's goal, I'll repeat that again, which by the way should be everyone's goal, because the muscle pays for the party. You don't have to look like me and be stuck together and have trouble scratching your own knee or something like that. You can have more mobility than that. You don't have to get that muscle bound. But it is important to have muscle because muscle is going to help shift your metabolism. It's going to help you to be able to eat more, for those of you that love to eat. And I see a lot of people spending, countless hours, on a row, or countless hours on a treadmill or something like that. And those can be effective ways to burn some calories. But it's nice when your body is actually working for you and you're not a slave to your own body. When it comes to deadlifting, or when it comes to any of these lifts, but when it comes to a deadlift, it's like, let's just try to break it down a little bit. What do we need? Well, we need a strong grip. And in order to have a strong grip, you're going to need strong biceps and a strong forearm, because the body is so intelligent and so smart that if there's a weak link, your hands will no longer be able to hold on to it anymore. Yeah. Your biceps are like, even though you're not trying to curl the weight, you're trying to let your arms be extended as much as you can, your body is going to say, this is not a good idea. You need to drop this. And same thing happens when your back rounds over. A lot of times your back will round over, and then the weights kind of go into your fingertips, and your body is just sending this message like, dude, you need to let go of that. Like, you're too rounded over, you're going to get hurt. And so you usually kind of drop the bar. The best way to get strong and the best way to improve on something like a deadlift is to only go to a technical limit. So you want to lift and you want to push it and you want to work hard, but you don't want to go so hard that you're failing all the time. You don't want to, you'll hear a bodybuilder say you want to go to failure and sometimes train through failure. And they'll do like spotted lifts. We don't really do that in powerlifting. In fact, a lot of great powerlifters, the best powerlifters I've ever seen, they'll go to do a lift and they'll pull on the weight and then they'll just kind of shake their head and they'll stop. And they might restart and they might lift it again, or they might even decrease the weight. And that's really hard to do because our ego gets in the way. We want to always lift more. Yeah. But it's not necessarily about lifting more. It's about lifting better. Yeah. And the definition of like what powerlifting truly is you're trying to move throughout an entire range of motion while maintaining position. And when you start to see people do that in person, when you go to a powerlifting meet and you see a female do it with 400 pounds or 500 pounds, or you see a guy deadlift 700, 800, 900 pounds and their back is still flat, to me, it's like magical. You're like, this guy's and this girl's, these are geniuses. Because who else can figure out a way to organize their body in that fashion and be able to demonstrate that amount of strength and their ability to recruit that many muscle fibers at one time? It's just insane. And it doesn't always get enough credit. But the only way that those people are able to actually get anywhere is if they always are training to the absolute limit. They're not going to recover from their workouts. And this is where you and I line up really well with the sleep. I feel like I have powerlifted everything in my entire life. Powerlifting is you do a lift, you go at it really hard, and then you recover.
Right.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, sometimes 10 minutes in between sets. The harder the lift, the longer the rest is. When we're in competition, it starts out with the squat. And you have 3 attempts on a squat, 3 attempts on a bench, and 3 attempts on a deadlift. And depending on how big the competition is how long it will be until your next turn. It's almost always like 12 minutes in between each set that you do. Think about that. You know, for some of your listeners, some of the people listening right now, to have 12 minutes in between a set, that's excessive. But that's what happens a lot of times in a powerlifting meet. It's because they want to see those athletes have the absolute best opportunity to make that weight again. So you're not going to be able to make the weight unless you're recovered. The recovery aspect of it, though, all starts with, because people ask me all the time, what do you do for recovery? What do you do for treatment? What do you do for this? I don't do much, because I try to train the best that I possibly can. I try to train optimally. I find weights that are optimal and not maximal. That's the biggest issue, is people are lifting too heavy. So they think, I'm going to go to the gym. All right, Mark Bell said I need a deadlift. And so they're going to go to the gym and they're going to try 3 plates, and they're going to barely make 3 plates, and it's going to be really crappy for them. The next week they're going to try it again. Next week they're going to try it again. They're not allowing themselves any room to really make any progress, because the body is only learning how to do the lift improperly, not really ever learning how to do it the right way. And so a great way to know what amount of weight you need on the bar, you should be able to talk to yourself while you're doing it. So if you're somebody that lifts around 300 pounds, try talking yourself through 225 and try 5 reps and say, okay, I'm going to try to keep my chest up. I'm going to try to keep my back flat. I'm going to try to keep my stomach tight. And I'm going to try to continue this form all the way up until I lock the weight out, and all the way back down to the ground. And I'm going to do all 5 reps that way. And I'm going to have perfect reps on every single thing that I do for the day. That's how you want to strength train.
Fitness has been huge for me since I was 12 years old, and growing up watching Hulk Hogan and The Ultimate Warrior and Stallone and Schwarzenegger on the big screen. So I've always been a meathead. And to this day, you look at Arnold, The Rock, they talk about like that's the foundation. Everyone that I know that I look up to that's successful, that's their foundation, that's their anchor. And you can't be your best self if you're not taking care of your body. Like, it's just a fact. You know, people, LL, Dr. Dre, they're all doing it. So you got, and now, I think when I was younger, when we were younger, people who at 45 seemed like they were old and retired. And like, you know what I mean? And I think there's still people that believe that. Because I get messages sometimes like, oh, I know my best days are behind me. I'm like, what? No, you're just getting started. Like, look at Will Smith, look at LL. Like, they're 50 plus and they're dominating. Yeah. So I think there's been a paradigm shift there for sure. And I don't feel old. I feel like I'm just getting started. But fitness is the thing. That's got to be the foundation. And also, you have to be selfish. I think most of the time you should be selfless and focus on other people, but you have to take care of yourself first. So if I don't get my morning routine in, if I don't get my workouts done, then I can't be my best for you, for everybody that I see. Then I'm behind the 8 ball. Then I'm stressed out and I have anxiety. So you got to take care of yourself. It's the best therapy, I think. So it's always got to be the foundation. And I put it like that because people complicate it too much now with Instagram in 2019. It's like, look, 3 to 5 days a week, lift some heavy stuff, do some basic exercises. You don't have to do all the crazy stuff you see on Instagram. Like, just basic stuff and just get it done.
Yeah. But in those basics, and even in this very short sentence, you say something that I don't think we talk enough about. It's not just lift, but you said carry. Why carry? Well,
I mean, that's basically the oldest form of strength training, right? It's just picking up heavy stuff and moving it to build shelter.
Yeah.
You know, thousands of years ago. So I think there's still value to that, is picking up. I mean, you'll have to do that in real life.
Right.
Like, you're not going to lay down in real life and press a bar like this, but everybody's always going to pick up suitcases, bags, kids, people, whatever, and carry stuff. Yeah. So it's like, that's the most functional thing you can do. So farmers walks, Zercher carries, whatever. You should always incorporate that in your weekly program.
You know what's crazy, man? Like, it's been probably the last 3 months. And, you know, I told you about my injury.
Yeah.
But I've been doing carries. Like, I'll do that to warm up. Like, I'll just get nobody else in the gym is doing this. Like, I'm just walking around with the heavy kettlebell in one hand or in 2 hands and just walking around, walking back. They're just like, is he putting it somewhere? You know what I'm saying? But I'm just replicating something that we would do normally in life that we should be training for. So
totally, and it strengthens everything from head to toe. Your ankles get stronger, your knee stability, hip stability,
obliques.
Low back, obliques. Yeah. Man. Yeah, actually, that's the single arm one that you're talking about. Your QL muscle, your quadratus lumborum, is one of the muscles that people don't know about that causes a lot of lower back pain. And Dr. Stuart McGill, who's like the leading spine expert on the planet, he says doing those is one of the best things you can do to strengthen that and thus prevent lower back pain.
Yes. Yeah. So grab a heavy dumbbell or a heavy implement, you know, a heavy kettlebell, whatever it is, and carry one.
Yep.
You know, just pick up, 100 yards or whatever it is. Just walk around your gym. Do that and switch hands, walk back. I think it'll be really helpful for everybody.
Absolutely.
That's great, man. And then also you said drag.
Yeah.
That's another thing we don't really think about.
Right.
But drag heavy things.
Again, going back to building shelter or killing a moose or something and dragging it. Like that's one of the oldest forms of strength training. That's what we had to do. And it just builds strength in a more functional way than just, getting in a machine or just doing like I said, a one-arm row or something like that. Yeah. Very functional. And great for knee strength too and preventing or rehabbing knee injuries.
Yeah. Man, so good. Another one of these 45 lessons from 45 years is less is more. Less is more. Why'd you put that on there?
I've always been attracted to that. And I think most people, even if they don't think about it, when somebody comes in and simplifies something for you, like if you're like, oh, should I do this, and you have a million options, and somebody's like, dude, those are crazy. Just do this one. You're like, you feel such a sigh of relief. Yeah. So and some of my favorite books are The One Thing and the 80-20 principle and essentialism. I think less is always more. The more you can reduce, that's why Steve Jobs and Mark Zuckerberg and people have a wardrobe that they wear all the time. The more you can reduce options, the more your anxiety and stress goes down. The more you simplify things, the better it's going to be, no matter what it is. That's why I said, like with fitness, everybody goes on Instagram and like, oh, should I do this? It's like, just simplify it. Just do a push, pull, a squat, a hinge. It's pretty simple stuff, So I'm always looking for ways that I could simplify things.
Yeah. One of the things I talked about with Steve Weatherford was he's really been, I think in the last couple of years, shifting more towards eccentric training.
Yeah.
Like just slowing things down. And he feels like he feels that pump in the changes with his muscle and the soreness, but his joints don't hurt.
Yeah.
Like he's not just like hammered like he used to be, but he's still incredibly fit.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just like, but he's doing less exercises, which it's very counterintuitive because we think we should do more. Like we've only worked out for 30 minutes. Like we got to do 90 minutes.
Yeah.
Right. But the opposite is often true.
Dude, I think it's always true, honestly. I think most people do way too much. If we're talking less is more specific to weight training and strength training, that's how I went from 147 pounds to over 220. That's how I got a lot of similar results with hundreds of people in my gym and online. Is I really like working up to 1 to 2 top end sets on stuff. So like if you're doing a leg day, maybe you work up to 1 heavy set of leg curls and do 1 heavy set of split squats, 1 set of squats, 1 set of RDLs. And where most people are doing, especially these days, they're doing rounds and they're doing 4 or 5 sets. It's like that's a lot of junk volume. I think the main thing that really makes a difference is setting PRs. So if you can do split squats with 35s today for 10, you should be doing 11 next week, and then you should move on to 40s. Over time, if you just get stronger, and an easy way to get stronger is to do less because that way your body's not so beat up, you're going to transform, you're going to feel better, your joints are going to be better.
Yeah. Love that, man. So good.
Unconventional training is really taking a fresh look at how to adapt the body, to the conditions of real world utilization. So durability, longevity, performance, all of these things. And I think at a certain point, we got away from those fundamental principles and started going straight for aesthetics. Like how can I build these muscles really strong by contracting them in really linear patterns on these fancy machines with weight stacks and all of these different ways that we've started to do it with, Arnold Schwarzenegger being our model. Let's get big or let's lose weight. And we're not really looking at, are we doing something that's healthy for the body? Is this actually helping performance? And I think unconventional training really was something I learned from all the pro athletes I started to come in contact with. Like the ones who were performing at their peak level realized that you can't get stronger just pushing a bench press. Like you have to adjust and you have to make adaptations. Even if you're a football player, there's never going to be a time where you have equal weight on your left hand and your right hand. And a lot of us think we're pretty strong. If you have a good bench, all right, put a 45-pound plate on one side and nothing on the other side, and then try to press it, and then see how strong you are. See how strong your core is at adapting to different weight conditions, which exactly mimic life. And I think knowing the MMA fighters who are in a constantly evolving environment, they couldn't train with these linear weight systems and these linear patterns. They had to go back in some cases to some of the older methodologies that used to train warriors and soldiers of the past, like the steel mace, the steel club, the kettlebells, which used to be dock weights in Russia that they would throw around, that allow you to move the body in kind of complex movement patterns with offset weight, which mimics, reality, mimics life, and also mimics how the body was trained to adapt. If you're doing real world things and the body's making adaptations, that's really what we're designed to do. And these unconventional training methodologies more mimic a real world condition. And so assists with longevity, prevents muscle imbalances from developing that can really, short circuit your athletic abilities and career.
The first time I had the opportunity to use this tool was here at On at HQ a couple years ago, which is the steel club, right? So what's the story behind that?
The steel club and steel mace were adapted from ancient Persia, actually, and they mimicked. Originally, they were designed to mimic some of the weaponry that the Persian warrior elite were using, because they were using a mace in battle and using swords and things single-handedly, like these clubs. And what they realized was that to train to be able to swing their lighter weapons faster, if they trained with heavier weapons and heavier tools in the similar movement patterns, then of course they would perform better when they had the lighter weapons to move. So they developed these training methodologies to strengthen the shoulder girdle in these areas where, imagine yourself swinging a mace or swinging, I guess the closest thing we have is a baseball, but that's a very singular motion, right? Like if you were a warrior and all you had was a baseball swing, you'd be really predictable.
Exactly.
So you have to swing from all angles, uppercuts, back cuts, straight up and down, all over the place, and really moving these tools in an intelligent way. And that's really where the mace and the club training developed, is how to get your shoulder and all of the finite muscles in your armpit and all of these things that you don't do with macro movements, and get to really strengthen those. And so obviously we don't have warriors swinging swords and stuff anymore, but we all do these different types of movements. Imagine a golf swing. Like if you're taking a golf swing, you're only really swinging from one side to the other. And of course you're going to develop muscle imbalances. Same with baseball, unless you're a great switch hitter, or if you're, the forehand to backhand in tennis. Like you want to pattern different movements and practice those, then the club is a great way to get these multi-directional reprogramming, of the other side of your body, and strengthen things in ways that you normally wouldn't be able to do. So they look kind of like giant juggling pins, and they're heavy. Yeah. And, I really, really highly recommend, especially anybody who's a golfer out there, get one of these steel clubs and do the swing the other way of your golf swing, and start working that side of your core muscles and that side of your hip snap and your legs, so that your body doesn't over time get so imbalanced that ultimately it breaks down. This is trying to restore muscular endurance, balance, longevity, durability. As for most of us, the amount of pleasure we get out of our bodies is going to be a factor of the amount of time we're able to use it with the amount of fun we have while it's going. And so we got to stay durable. We don't want to give this up. We don't want to be one of those people that used to be able to do the fun things and used to be able to play games with our kids or wherever, but we can't anymore because our body won't let us. And the corrective steps can start now in training. And the great thing too is these tools are fun to use, because you're learning new skills. Like the Mace 360 is a really challenging skill where you're swinging the mace back and forth, and then you pattern the Mace 360. Then we get what's called the infinity flow, which is back behind your head, out, down in front of your body, back behind your head, down in front of your body. And it's swinging in this seemingly effortless motion. But then you get one of your friends to try, and it's like, how the heck did you do that? So it's really fun to learn these new skills and test your body to adapt to these different changing conditions.
Yeah, I mean, it was so humbling. The first time I did the Mace, the 360, I was blown away, because I saw it, I'm like, oh, okay, piece of cake. No. It was definitely humbling, and it's a skill, you actually learn a skill. And plus, there are muscles firing that have had no experience with anything.
They've been hibernating like a bear, and all of a sudden you wake them up like, oh, you're using me now. Here you are. Yeah.
But it's having these tools, and today, and also they look cool, as part of it too. They're pretty fun. And this is just another tool that you guys have. But so you got the steel clubs, steel maces. What's the mace? Tell everybody.
Yeah, the mace. So the mace is was traditionally called a gada, and it's from the same kind of origin, but it's a long steel shaft with a heavy weighted ball. So it's naturally one of the most offset levers that you have. Yeah. So by sheer nature, remember what I was saying about the bench press with a 45-pound plate on one side and nothing on the other. It's like that, but in a smaller, more portable version. You can't exactly swing around a barbell unless you're a Hulk, you know. But this allows you to utilize your core in almost every movement. And with all of these tools, you can get a complete body workout depending on the movement patterns that you do, but you're always working that compensation to deal with the fact that the weight is going to be on one side and there's going to be lightness on the other. Yeah. So even holding it straight, even just pressing it out in front of your body, you're adapting. The heavy side is trying to keep you, keep pushing forward and holding it up. And then the other side is trying to keep your body stable and trying to keep yourself in line. So a very simple movement becomes a complex pattern where your proprioceptors are firing the things that keep your balance, and everything is working at the same time. The small muscles in your feet are adapting and figuring out how to keep you in line. And so your whole body just gets lit up. Whereas if you're doing something simpler, maybe you're just isolating, like go back to one of those machines with a weight stack, they'll show you exactly the muscles that it's working. You look, there'll be a little diagram and it'll be like, this one is pec and tricep, you're like, okay, great. That's not like that with unconventional training. Your whole body would be lit up from, the top of your head if you're holding the right head position and tucking your chin, to the pelvis that you're keeping in the right spot, all the way down to the small muscles in your feet that are grabbing onto the ground to keep you balanced. And so it's really lighting up your whole body and strengthening all of these fibers that keep our discs in line and keep our joints loose and mobile. So I really can't more highly at least recommend supplementing unconventional training in there, if nothing else for the durability, longevity, balance effect of it. And, I think you'll find too that some days, that's really what your body wants, is just to get in there and swing some of these ancient tools around and, get back to your more primal roots.
A really simple thing that people could add into their daily world, which is like one of the principles that we break down, is just the value of getting your arms up over your head each day. So you're just getting like a pull-up bar in your house. Like, please, if you don't already have a pull-up bar, get a pull-up bar in your house. And I don't even care if you ever do a pull-up. A lot of girls can't do a pull-up. It's great, no problem. They're a lot better rock climbers typically because they're forced to use their lower body in order to climb. Whereas guys that can grunt through and muscle through and use their upper bodies, they end up lacking form. So I don't even care if you can do a pull-up. What I care about is that you get your arms up over your head and you just spend a little bit of time each day. In the book, I recommend 90 seconds total. So that could be like 15 seconds, 6 times or whatever, hanging from that position. And you could think of it as you're doing that, you're literally restructuring the shape of your shoulder girdle, which a common tendency is to go into impingement if you're always hunching forward, cell phoning, carpal tunneling yourself, and computering and chairs and all that. So just that simple practice of just get long, create that space in there, hang for a total of 60 to 90 seconds. Whatever you'll do is what I want you to do. If what you'll do is 10 seconds, 10 seconds. Like whatever you'll do, whatever bite is good for you. And within that, literally think of it as like, visualize yourself. It's like, imagine if you had a wet blanket and you left the wet blanket kind of like crumpled up, and it would start to kind of like fester and kind of get moldy and get all gross. You're like, oh, we might have to throw that blanket out. Like, that's not gonna work. That's your lungs and your ribs and your intercostals and all this precious tissue if it's not being breathed and expanded and contracted with regularity. When you're doing that, that opening up, imagine what you're doing is it's like you're taking that wet blanket and you're exposing it to the sun and you're kind of lifting it out and kind of letting that air blow through it. Now all of a sudden that blanket's starting to heal. And so by having that relationship of your shoulder girdle and your neck and your ribs and all that in a position that's most aligned, balanced, stacked, a really simple way to do that, like a shotgun approach, is just spend some time hanging each day. Another bullet point that would be supportive is recognizing, we were talking about your central nervous system, and gaining a relationship with your spine and your neck and your whole body really. But a continuation of your central nervous system is your eyeballs. So if you are staring into screens all day long, that's literally putting your nervous system, your autonomic nervous system, which I would say is a misnomer because your autonomic nervous system is continually responding to your environment that you're consciously choosing. So when you are staring in that myopic vision, what do you do if you are in that fight-flight state? What do you do if a lion comes into the room right now? You go, you focus in on it, right? Now we make action. So now we go in and we go through that whole, the adrenaline and the cortisols and all those things come online, get you ready to move, and then what do your eyes do once you've defeated the lion or made it away, or go into like, you're in the savannah and you're kind of just like, oh, you're just taking it. You're probably not focusing in on a lion anymore. You're probably just kind of spacing out and saying like, whoa, man, that was crazy. Right? So your eyes, the continuation of your brain, your central nervous system, are continually feeding information back into your physiology, saying, okay, are we focused? Are we executive function? Fight, flight, make it happen? Or are we more in that panoramic vision where it's a calming, soothing, rest, digest, repair type state? So if you're staring into your phone all day and you're wondering why it's hard for you to wind down and go to sleep at night, well, you're essentially sending the signal to your brain, especially if you're doing that right before you're going to bed. Think of it as like, you're sending the signal to your brain that it's time to wake up. It's time to go into action. It's time to move. It's not time to be still. And so if you want to be calm, you're feeling stressed out, say before, and this I'll just compound one little like variable stack. If you're stressed out, you're going into a date with somebody you're nervous about, or a business thing, or anything of the sort, and you're feeling like, oh my God, like my shoulders are clenched up, and I feel like I'm clenching my jaw, and I'm just like, oh, I'm like panicking. Emphasize calming your eyes. Take the whole room in. So when you walk in, utilize that panoramic vision by really feeling the whole room. You could even visualize like, okay, what's the room feel like behind me? Do I have a memory of what's going on back there? Right? Like, can I kind of feel the people behind me? Can I really take, and anybody that's ever gone bow hunting, which I don't know people's beliefs around that, but whatever, the experience of hunting is really fascinating to have. Even if you don't ever actually kill an animal, just the experience of stalking an animal is one of the most unbelievable experiences, because your senses turn on in a way that will never happen in a Whole Foods. Right? Unless it was like there was some sniper came in and all of a sudden, poof, you're on, right? So when you're out there hunting, you're hearing every little stick, every little twig breaking, wind, you're noticing the directionality of the wind because that's going to determine the smell from me. You're taking distances. Okay, cool, that's 20 yards, 30 yards, 40 yards, 50 yards. So your physical, environmental, internal map of what's happening goes whoosh, and expands out, and you become the forest. So what is that at a neurological level? It's you coming alive. It's you engaging with your world.
But if we step out of this universe, if we look at human life as what it is and how it's evolved, it really is survival of the fittest. And if you're not taking your health and your family's health seriously, you just won't survive. Now, I'm not saying that, say this virus, for instance, is going to kill all your family members. What I'm saying is, if I and my husband are very conscious about keeping our kids active, sharing a narrative around what it means to move your body regularly, exercising, performing, and then fueling your body a certain way that then that gives you optimum results or execution of that body, then there's that narrative in a household, and there's the other family that perhaps are not taking that stuff seriously and are feeding their bodies full of junk and not prioritizing, again, not the crazy workouts or putting your kids in all sorts of sports, but just regular movement and encouraging that. Who's living longer? Who's thriving? Who's got a healthier mindset that then leads to opportunities, to also wealth, if you will? Like, who's doing that? So when I say, only the fittest will survive type thing, I'm kind of thinking of it as more metaphorically. like, I'm not saying you're going to die, so to speak, but who's living their best life?
Yeah.
Which family, which group of people, if you will. And I've always said I want to be part of those people that are conscious about how to literally honor the very vessels that we live in, because these are the bodies that are carrying us through this experience, this human experience of life. And that's, again, as you mentioned also, we have to pay attention to our mindsets, our mental, emotional, not just our physical health. Admittedly, and I think this is important because I've always avoided talking about this, and I think this might be a woman thing, but I found that I'm 38 years old, and I'm proud to be 38. I'm not one of those women that are too scared to say their age, actually, which always makes me feel funny that women are like, don't say your age. I'm like, why the hell not? I achieved this. But you know, my life from 28, when fitness was really big for me, meaning I grew up always as an athlete. Then I started working, and then I was, you know, doing that corporate thing, and that was very much a focus. And then I got back into regular exercise around 26, 27. By 28, I was really into it. And consistency for me then was defined really differently than what consistency is for me today.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to say, because a lot of women that I know that are in their 30s, even 40s, have this idea that they have to maintain a level of consistency that they're defining back when they were in their 20s versus what that means for them today. That's important for me to realize, because as somebody that's in very much the space of a fitness influencer, age does matter. Because and I don't mean that from a limiting perspective, meaning you're older, so you should be a bit more mindful about what you're doing in the gym and how often. No, not the intensity, so to speak, but simply because lifestyle changes. I tell people all the time, when I was 28, I was not married, I was single. I did not have 4 kids to take care of, or a mortgage or home, you know? So I think it's really important for not just your physical health, but your mental health. Ladies out there, please understand your definition of consistency today is going to be very differently than it was 10, 15 years ago. And that is okay. That is fine. Let me tell you, when I was 28, consistency for me meant at least 6 days a week. 4 of those days were 2-a-days, right? Every single one of those 6 days involved at least an hour or 90 minutes of cardio, right? And I would live for at least 90 minutes. That was consistency for me, meaning Sunday I would rest, like really rest. And then if for whatever reason I got 5 days, I'd be like, bad week. Yo, if I got 5 days today and was in the gym twice, Monday through Thursday, and then did 90 minutes of cardio, like throughout, I would be like, holy smokes, I'm superwoman. Like, so I cannot live up to that standard. That's one thing I realized. I cannot live up to the standards that I gave myself in my 20s that I do today, because that is guaranteed like a mental breakdown. And I'm trying to live my very best life today as a 38-year-old married woman with 4 kids to be responsible for. So I say this with a lot of passion, because there's so many women out there, and I know this because I've had conversations with them, that are stuck on old definitions of what consistency means for them. So today, for me, Shawn, consistency is at least 4 days a week of doing my favorite hike that takes me about 70 minutes. 70. And I know this because I time myself. So if I'm under that, I'm like, that's a great day, you know? And if I get to the gym twice a week and put in at least an hour, that's a fantastic week for me. And that is okay. Yeah. I feel good, right? Sure, I'm not the beast mode girl that's like out squatting the boys in the gym. And that's okay, because I don't need to be that person. As long as I can still out squat the older son, which I can, I'm still good. But what I'm saying is, for me, ultimately, the goal is to feel good in my own body, right? And if that means a little extra pounds, so be it. If that means I need to lose a little weight, so be it. But like for me, I'm trying to live my best life. And that's what my consistency has to be aligned to that.
The idea here is that WOD is a shorthand for workout of the day. And when we started, we used the word mobility workout of the day. First of all, is that the word mobility wasn't used at all. There was a reference to Eric Cressy And I think he made a DVD called Magnificent Mobility a long time ago. And as a physical therapist, I mobilized tissues. And so what we found was that I wanted a word that didn't mean stretching, because stretching had really come to mean something else, right? And what I'll tell you today is that mobility is a word that's now been convoluted. It means like, it's like the word extreme or core, you know, like, what are you doing? Working on mobility. I'm like, okay. So let me define mobility first. First of all, mobility means that I have the requisite base range of motion that all of my tissues should be able to have. This means that the physiology, the structure and geometry of the body suggests what normal range of motion is for each of us. And what turns out is that if you go into the experts, American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons, American Academy of Family Practitioners, the physical therapists, Bible, Norkin, and Wykes, if you look at all of these people who've studied range of motion, we have basically all agreed within a few degrees of what normal baseline function should look like in each joint, right? Joint based. So that's well and good. And in physical therapy school, I had to memorize all those things, right? Well, it turns out what no one had done for me was compare what my body should do with what I was doing when I squatted, what I was doing when I got into a pistol. So it turns out for the average person, we don't have to memorize those body range of motions because we have a language called push-up, air squat, squatting all the way down with your heels on the ground, getting into a lunge, running, putting your arms over your head effectively. And you know what's nice is that gives us real benchmarks around what we're supposed to be able to do in terms of just straight raw tissues, there's also this software component to it. And what we know is that, your practice doesn't make perfect, practice makes permanent. That's how your brain is wired. That's why we practice skills. That's why you did all those crazy skill drills, right, over and over again in sports, so that you could ingrain a pattern, so that those neurons could literally wire together. The oligodendrocytes, those Schwann cells, would come in and lay the myelin in and reinforce that neural pattern so that it would be easier to do it. That's why habits are so hard to break. It's so difficult to wire together to create a habit. It's also even more difficult to fire and wire apart because we have to physically break down those myelin sheaths and create a new pathway. So mobility is not only do I have the joint capsule range of motion, or is my interstitial tissue, my interstitium, the fascia, does that slide, or my muscle stiff, right? But I also have this software that says, does my brain know how to put me into stable positions? Does my brain know how to organize the body and have the control that it needs? Which means that's 50% of the score is skill. That's why we teach fundamental movements to kids and then continue to build on them. So like I said, one of the things that we ask about is, as we're having this conversation about mobility, the one thing is, hey, can your tissues get there? And then do you have control of your tissues? And what we'll see is that when we look at skills, we want to make sure that skills and training leads to open positions, that those skills and abilities scale from kids to Olympic athletes, from children and youth athletes all the way up to my geriatric patients, that the principles are the same for our adaptive athletes as they are for my MMA fighters. It is the same principles. And when we suddenly can't derive consilience, when you're saying one thing and it doesn't jive with the principles of what I'm saying, someone has a problem in their thinking. Because what's happening now is that there are lots of ways to get to the end. We know that all roads lead to Rome, and it's okay to have styles. You're, the Swolger from On It. You're all about the, kettlebells, and great. And there's a lot of ways to be working on those, get you to those shapes and positions, but the principles and the physiology remains constant. The environmental considerations remain constant. We just turn them up and turn them down. So when you suddenly get to mobility, what we've found more and more now through the workout of the day is that, hey, we want position to be part of the conversation of the modern physical practice. And when I say physical practice, I'm not talking about just training for an hour. I'm talking about your physical practice starts when you go to bed and how well you sleep and how dense you sleep. That's part of your physical practice. What you do first thing in the morning and how you prime yourself. The foods you eat, how much non-exercise activity you have during the day, your ability to down-regulate, did you breathe hard, all of those things, and then we can talk about training, all of those things constitute your physical practice. But what we've tried to say is, hey, look, the issue is that a lot of times we can buffer poor positions for a long time until all of a sudden you're like, what do you mean I can't squat all the way down? What do you mean I can't put my arms over my head or take a full breath? What do you mean my shoulder comes forward in Kimura? And so what we've done then is said, hey, let's put position and value position as much as we value strength, as much as we value speed, as much as we value cardiorespiratory conditioning. And really position is a hallmark of efficiency. And ultimately the way we train and think is that we say, hey, look, here are your positions. You've got it. You're solid. We're working on it. It's a moving target. It changes day to day based on who you are and what's going on. But can you maintain that shape and position under load, under a little stress, when you're breathing hard, when you're going fast, when you got to do more than 5 in a row, right? What do you look like at the end of your 5K race? Do you look like at the beginning? Well, there's a really interesting diagnostic around your position. And what we've said forever is as long as you went faster, that was good enough. And now we know that that's short-term thinking. And so what we can really say is the skilled athlete can transfer the positions between sports, between training modalities faster and faster and faster. And suddenly what you have is what someone else, and I'm blanking on the name, calls repetition without repetition. And that's it. So that I never, when I'm snowboarding down some steep face, I never want to be thinking about my feet or my breathing. I want to be thinking about where the board's going, what's coming next, the inputs. I got to get back to no mind. But that's why training is so important and why we need to sometimes take the high intensity out now because we're here and put the skill and mindfulness back in.
Hey, if you like this video, make sure to check out this video right here.
And how did Nolan Ryan get so much longevity? I heard stories of him working out with his arm in a barrel of rice and just rotating, internal rotation, external rotation, and just, guy pitched for what, 27 years? I mean, he blew his arm out at 40, I think it was 46 years old. He threw his last pitch, and I think they said it was 97 or 98 miles an hour.
Unbelievable.